It is me.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Juggernaut, bitch. That's how I started.
Seems to me like, bottom line, you guys got exploited.
Yeah, pretty much. This is something I think with members of Team 4-Star. Yeah.
Because you guys had to inspire them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, for sure. It had to have been right after us.
So to kind of slate this off a little bit, to give some context, I was working on a project related to the history of fan dubs. I mentioned this to our mutual friend Kelly. They were like, oh, I know Scott from Team 4-Star. And in my hubris, I was nervous about reaching out because in my sort of arrogance, I'm like, well, everyone knows the Abridging story. The Abridging story became the story of dubbing. And this video project ended up being so horrifically long and that I was like nervous about reaching out. And then I realized, oh, wait, in the little video document segment, I included your clip from your It Was Me, Barry meme. So you're in the video, technically. At least your work is in the video.
It was me, Barry. I made them draw Lola Bunny with fewer sexual features so that you wouldn't be horny and reduce your blood flow to make you a millisecond slower.
The funny thing about the video, by the way, and this is a great example of why you should never credit directors with making entire movies. So that joke stemmed from this old meme about Reverse Flash Flash off and then saying, "It was me, Barry," and that became an entire subculture of memes.
Remember when you were making out with your first girlfriend and you right as she touched your leg? It was me, Barry. I you off at super speed so it'd seem like you it at just a woman's touch.
Other characters saying similar things. I even made a Sonic one about how he kills Elise.
It was me, Sonic. I made them animate Rouge with fewer sexual features so that you wouldn't be horny, reducing your blood flow to make you a millisecond slower. Slow enough for me to kill Elise.
Wait a second. Wouldn't sexual arousal draw blood away from my brain and legs?
Chaos control.
Motherfucker. But this particular one stemmed from when Space Jam 2 was under fire from very, very normal people about the fact that they were making Lola Bunny less sexy. Somebody, I think it was either on Twitter or it was on our Tumblr, made this post with the original text that's in the video I made. Then Vincent, wonderful actor, decided to give it voice and then posted that on Twitter. I think with just an image, actually.
It was me, Barry. I made them draw Lola Bunny with fewer sexual features.
And then I came in, took that audio, and then edited the animation from Flashpoint film. It's sort of interesting because, again, it started from a meme that became the text that then got voiced that I then edited completely separate from one another. Like, no contact between any of us as these iterations came out.
Yeah, because that sort of almost became like your initial role in Team 4-Star was as the person who's bringing all of the other voices together and editing that.
Yeah, actually, in a way. It's sort of funny how that works.
It was me, Barry. I'm...
If it's a Super Saiyan you're looking for, I can fill the part. Give them a proper Helsing welcome.
Goku, I swear to God, I will ride your ass on this one.
So, how many points are those?
When the whole Abridged thing started with Martin, Little Karibo, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, we were all kind of making our own Abridged series. I was making a Loop on the Third Abridged, Takahata was making a G Gundam Abridged, Lanny Batora was making a Yu Yu Hakusho Abridged.
To give my weird take on them, because I was a huge Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged fan, and that was the reason why I, in my arrogance, didn't tune in regularly to DBZA, was because I thought when I initially heard, oh, DBZ Abridged, have you heard of it? It's really good. It's one of the best Abridged series. And I thought, yeah, but doesn't that seem kind of basic in some way? because when Martin, the godfather of Abridging, happened, felt to me like there would almost be like, once Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged kicked everything off, there was this sort of like gold rush of who can claim which Abridged series first. Everyone started carving up the whole anime property because nobody wants to be the second person making One Piece Abridged or Naruto Abridged.
Yeah.
You guys, in terms of the history of like fan dubbing as a whole, are the first fan dubbing supergroup. Everybody had their own abridged series that was coming in. And then the biggest reason why I realized why nobody, because that seems like the holy grail is Dragon Ball Z. Why wouldn't you want to go for that? But it is because there is just a load of characters in Dragon Ball Z. And this was your way of basically bringing in a team large enough to actually cast and create the thing.
And the interesting thing about that, so Masako, Lenny Bator, and Vegeta 3986, and a girl named I Touched Yusuke, they were doing the movies. They decided, okay, we can't do the whole show, right? It's too many episodes, too many characters, so let's just do the movies. And at the time, there was some other people doing some Dragon Ball fan content, SSJ Gozar with Alternate Reality Dragon Ball Z, the real DBZ Abridged guys, back before we even started. There was Weekly Tube Show. There were people who were already doing like little comedy fan dubs for Dragon Ball, but they decided, okay, let's just do the movies. It'll be way easier. And when I saw that, I was really excited. One of the few times, like, yeah, these were people who had been working on separate Abridged series coming together to work on something that I really, really loved. And then Taka, of all people, again, he was making that G Gundam Abridged at the time, which actually, funny enough, while Martin like got me addicted to a Abridged series, it was actually Taka's G Gundam that got me started. It was due to the fact that they were doing some interesting things with music, with framing that I found very interesting and inspired me. I was like, I could do that. And I won't lie, there was a part of me that said, I could do it better. And
that's where we're going to run into trouble later on, I realize.
Right. And so I went to Lanny after Kurt pushed me as hard as he could to ask Nick, hey, do you want to, I don't know, do the show? And it was so funny because after I pitched it to Nick, he waited for a minute and he's like, okay, I have two conditions. One, I'm on the writing team, and two, I play Vegeta.
Is that me? Is that me stronger than me? I'll f***ing kill me! I was a little overconfident. I mean, have you ever met me? I'm me!
You really believe your own hype?
I am the hype! You think you're being cute? I'm adorable.
And yeah, we started getting more and more people involved as the cast kind of grew. And it was insane because getting all those people working on a giant project together at that time, it was kind of magical for me and the rest of us.
It was a real internet collaboration, especially how I didn't realize how international the whole thing was.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you saw Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged? Do you remember where you were when you first saw it?
Gosh. I could have been living in Missouri at the time, or I might have been back in California. I remember I was watching it, and I think I was still living with my father at the time, actually. And I was blown away by the sheer, like, approach to it. Because we all talk about the fact that, a Abridged series is going episode by episode, right? Nobody did that back then. This was kind of like the big deal, is that, no, it's actually going to try and tackle the story in a funny way, but it's going to, like, give you this comedic retelling. And that was amazing because other shows had tried to do like parody comics, they had tried to do parody animations, but it was never trying so much to fully retell it.
Because the big influence style-wise for Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, I do believe, was the Reduced Shakespeare Company, the complete and reduced works of William Shakespeare. And that I feel like distinctly falls in a category of like dorky theater core humor. Like that's what theater kids shared it.
Hell yeah.
That's kind of the brilliant thing when it came to bridging something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is because the show is so redundant and ridiculous and over the top that when you do just condense it down to its basic contradictory points, it just becomes a hyper accelerated skit. And I think the very odd thing with DBZA is while Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged is a very clear spoof, at a certain point, DBZA stopped being a stone-cold spoof and started being DBZA.
1. TFS managed to retain the characters of both Nail and Kame, two characters that had significant amounts of time and effort put into developing them. In doing this, they succeeded in keeping the characters relevant. By his own admission, Akira Toriyama does not think he's very good at writing romantic stories, which freed up a lot of growing room for TFS when handling this aspect of the Cell Saga.
What about Cyborg? Like from that movie we saw? Well, Just wanted you to know that I miss you, Dad. What the?
Hey, get your ass moving! Something is tearing its way through the compound! We gotta go!
Okay, sorry about this, Dad. Gotta run. Love you.
And behind that again, you can hear a Kid Goku charging up his Kamehameha. That's heavy. It gives more motivation behind Dr. Jiro's hatred for Son Goku, and builds up 16's relationship with his father. It's a beautiful addition, and one that only serves to elevate all those involved.
That's kind of inarguably true, I think. It's weird to talk about from my perspective, right? Because as we were working on it, wasn't necessarily our intent to not make a comedy, right? But the big thing that we were running into was we were worried we were going to get repetitive. Because when it comes to comedy, you can make those jokes only a certain amount of times before they start to kind of get old. And not to mention, if you don't have a certain amount of investment in both the characters and the story, then, I mean, the comedy kind of starts to fall off too. It's kind of like in a lot of Marvel movies, especially after, I'd say, Endgame, where they kind of have a problem with sincerity. They have a problem really committing to their bigger moments because they always want to undercut them with comedy. We wanted to almost undercut the comedy with drama, actually. We wanted to go at it a different angle where we wanted to make you laugh in one scene, but then the next one be actually legitimately concerned for a character, or endeared by a sincere remark from them, or engaged in the drama of the moment. Especially as it went on, we realized we were making our own versions of the characters. Which I don't want to like blow my own head up. I'm not trying to say like, oh, you know, we were developing our own version of Piccolo, but that sort of did organically happen. Because we wanted to stay consistent with his character, suddenly he was desperately lonely and wanted to be around people. He also wanted a house and a place to stay, and that became a part of his character. With Goku, we turned the constant meme of him being a bad dad to him being somebody who misconstrued what being a good dad was. It wasn't that he wanted to be neglectful, he was neglectful by misconception. That's what ended up happening with the characters because we wanted them to still be endearing, by the way. That was another thing. By the time we got to season 3, we're like, okay, we need to work on making sure that these characters are more likable, but we also wanted to make sure that they had consistent characters that were growing and changing, because that would also keep people interested in where they were going to go and how we were going to develop them.
Which is fascinating to me because as a reflex, whenever I see that happen in terms of things like webcomic, you know what I might be, or in terms of
no, don't you Control-Alt-Delete me? I'll die.
But historically, the idea of let's take something funny and make it go serious has backfired. And DBZA pulled off a very faithful, earnest, and sincere adaptation, like retelling of Dragon Ball Z, as many people have pointed out. When I think of spoof Dragon Ball Z, I think of Mega 64 doing like they did what you would think a Dragon Ball Abridged would be at first glance.
And let's not forget DBZ in a nutshell.
We will show you who is the most powerful. Oh yeah? We're the most powerful because we are very strong. Oh yeah, well, we're very strong too. Isn't that right, Frieza? Yeah, we're very strong. We're very strong. Yeah, you can't defeat us because... We need to go to some place that's completely desolate and that would never be in real life at all.
I don't want to say that that's the original, but I'd say that's the biggest one, that's like the oldest one, and like that's also really big, right?
I had a talk with a friend how Gus in comedy is a lot like Killing the Frog, where it's really not funny unless you also then take the dead frog and make it dance a little bit and go, hello my honey, hello my baby, hello my ragtime gal. But when it comes to fandom humor has a notorious reputation of being unfunny. That there has been a kind of like anime con skit quality to a lot of that. And over DBZA, you've seen the writing evolve and you see the humor evolve. What was some of the earliest like fandom internet comedy that you remember?
Earliest internet... Red vs. Blue is one of the shining examples, if I had to be honest. That one I remember watching when I was living in Missouri, and I was addicted to it. I positively loved it. In fact, there's at least 1 or 2 jokes in Dragon Ball Z Abridged that are basically just us quoting them, which was the style at the time. Also quoting The Simpsons, which was the style at the time. Back when the internet humor was really taking off, everyone was like, I want a signal that I watched these guys. And that was kind of it. They were like, oh, remember that joke? Well, now it's here. Yeah. Which that's how you write comedy, apparently.
And make sure the references are extremely dated.
Owned! Man, that was almost as painful as when they cancelled the OC.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch! Also, I was very interested to know if you remember one of the first viral fan dubs, which is the Juggernaut bitch.
Oh yeah, trust me. That was every single person I knew who had watched it, we quoted it constantly. You know, the parts we could quote anyway.
I like your raincoat, bitch. You can't run. You can't run. I'm Juggernaut. I don't even need no condom. Look at what my outfit's made out of. Yeah, that's right. Be amazed at the size.
Because that was the weird thing. It was a genuine, like, R-rated, like, when I saw it, and which I think you would agree, it felt funny enough to be on Adult Swim.
You know, if the mic quality were a little bit better and the video quality were a little bit better, it 100%, you wouldn't have to, I don't think you would have had to have changed anything else other than just the quality being better. And yeah, it probably could have aired on Adult Swim. Hell, back in the day when they had like 12-ounce mouse, it probably could have just aired the way it was.
I don't sell hoes, I sell candy. Can you see my fucking outfit? I'm a part-time stripper and I do hair.
One thing that I definitely wanted to bring up, which is something that I feel like I can relate to and that the My Way guys can relate to. I think you have an incredible number of amazing projects ahead of you, but one of your defining chapters of your life is going to be a fan work.
Yeah.
And also a fan work where Toei have not always necessarily had the most friendly relationship with you guys.
Are you familiar with the Dragon Ball Z Abridged by Team 4-Star? Oh, sorry.
Did you have another question?
Hey guys, Kaiser Neko of Team 4-Star here, currently busy working on episode 51. Hey Lanny, what's going on the main channel?
Everything's on fire! Oh my god!
It's that time of year again. Birds are singing, bees are buzzing, and every episode of DBZA has been ripped down off YouTube.
Wow, you're right. It looks like a bunch of our episodes were hit by copyright strikes. But don't you guys worry, we'll get this sorted sooner or later.
Let me be really frank. The reason I answer questions like that is because Toei does not support that, and Toei and Funimation doesn't, and it's not really very legal. And so, as a guy who voices the main character on the show, it's very hard for me to get behind that, especially when if a company is making a product and then they call you up and say, hey, please stop doing that. Yeah, they're talented and funny. I take issue with taking someone's animation and purposing it for your own business model. You're not entitled because you're American or because it's free reuse or because it's fair use, because it's not legally fair use in my opinion. So I'm not a lawyer, but I studied the crap out of it to figure out if it was.
Do you remember, I've had work on old channels get removed because of copyright stuff, and it is genuinely one of the scariest fucking feelings in the world.
Oh, yeah.
When I was talking to the My Way guys about what happened with them, I could see the look on their face when they were talking about this, because it's a really fucking scary feeling. Do you remember, like, what you were all going through when you started getting your episodes removed, when the attack started happening?
I have a story about that, actually. So I was visiting my friend Yama in San Diego. I was there for Comic-Con at the time. And I had gone to sleep and woke up that morning to 16 missed phone calls. And I was flabbergasted. I was annoyed, actually. Like 16 missed phone calls, several voice messages. And I skipped the voice messages. I went straight to calling Lanny, who left all the calls. And as soon as he picked up, he's like, hey, and I'm like, all right, our channel better have been taken down because 16 phone calls is a lot.
Funny you should mention that.
And then you realize, oh, shit, wait, maybe it was taken.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I literally said our channel better have been taken down. And that is exactly what had happened. And it really did just kind of like throw me. I don't even remember exactly how I felt at the time. Probably distraught, terrified, freaked out. Because, you know, the show that we'd been building, that we had actually built up a pretty big fan base for, at least 500,000 subscribers at the time, maybe 400, was gone. It was taken down. And they didn't just ping one, like all of our videos with one claim. They pinged a bunch, which is, they can choose if they want to ping, like give you multiple strikes or just one strike with multiple videos. And they chose multiple videos, which is the thing that took our channel down. And we freaked out. Our first instinct was, okay, we can salvage this. Because I think at the time we were actually working on making our own website because of the time limit on YouTube. I believe back then it was 10 minutes, which,
And you used to have to divide things up into multiple parts, and that's actually why...
Episode 10 is multiple parts, yes. Although, ultimately, that just became something we did later because we didn't want our episodes to go very long anyway. But we ended up creating a website for that where we had our own embedded player. It worked for the time. Like, we told people, hey, this is where you can find it. This is where you can watch it. Sorry, our channels are down. Because at the time we were using like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube back then. Like, we made our own videos on our channel saying, hey, this is where you can find it. And luckily all of our own individual channels were still up. They hadn't been hit by anything that had taken them down. So we were able to build our audience back up on the website.
Because you still had your individual people and you still had networks outside of the main Team 4-star hub.
Yeah. Now, here's the funny thing. We thought, okay, there's no way that we can fight this, right? Because at the time we were like, we're almost certain that what we're doing is fair use. To this day, we will argue it's fair use. As hard as we can, anyway. Fair use is a whole nebulous gray area in our copyright system. We can go into that later. But we were like, okay, we want to argue it, but what if we fail? What'll happen if we try to counterclaim and then they bring us to court? What do we do? Do we even have enough money to fight it, even if we are right? And so we're like, okay, you know what? We're not going to fight it. We're just going to post on the website and move on. And then one night, I got a bug up my ass. I got on YouTube and I was like, you know what? What if I, like Frodo, like,
what if I take it?
Yeah, what if I did counterclaim them? And then I did, and our channel went back up.
Oh shit, it worked.
Yeah, I was like, what? And then my team, who I didn't tell, were like, what? And so, yeah, our channel went back up, and so did all of our videos, because YouTube sent it to Toei, and Toei didn't fight the counterclaim.
Because I do want to get into discussing the ethics and crazy fair use stuff when it comes to fan dubbing. But as I've noticed, 90% of the time, somehow this ends up in the shrug emoji. And you just went and you were like, all right, I'm going to try and challenge the shrug emoji. And you challenged the shrug emoji and won.
Yeah. Well, because
when it could have gone badly, and it just oh no, this fixed literally everything.
Yeah, and that encouraged us in the future. If a video got blocked, we fought back against it every time.
It's a very scary notion to try to challenge that.
Yeah, and because nobody wants to be the precedent, whether good or bad. Nobody is out there. Maybe somebody's out there, but most people aren't out here being like, I want to set the precedent, because if you do it well, if you set the precedent for, yes, this is in fact fair use and should be protected, you're still going to fight a fight. You're going to have to go to court. You're going to have to spend money. Your name's going to be out there. You're going to be under scrutiny. There's going to be so much stress. And then if you lose, take all of that and then add punishments and being the person responsible for then setting a negative precedent. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be that person. And so we were just out here doing our best to keep our channel alive at the time, because we wanted to keep entertaining people and growing. And it was terrifying. After a certain while, it became sort of mundane because it just became a routine. But at first, oh no.
You guys have gotten kind of Swiss cheesed in terms of the uses of Hetchala in some of the videos.
Yeah, unfortunately so I think a music group finally was like, nah, we own that. Which, yeah, I mean, makes sense. I don't know what to say about it other than kind of wish we'd used a cover or something, but oh well, what you gonna do? It would be real nice, YouTube, if you allowed us to replace audio with our own audio. I don't know why that's not an option. Whatever, I don't care. Why would I care?
I mean, the good news being, I think everybody can hum it along in their head at this point.
People are still watching them, so at least we have that.
To ask kind of an important question, because again, with your project, one of the most successful viewed fan projects that has existed on YouTube.
Definitely involving like the kind of stuff that we're doing.
And it's always been, as each episode slates, non-profit.
Following is a non-profit fan-based parody. Please support the official release.
The following is a non-profit fan-based parody. Please support the official release.
At some point, you made the transition to being able to work on a non-profit fan project full-time.
Yep.
I'm curious to know how that worked on your end from a monetary perspective.
So as you'll notice, as time went on, we removed the nonprofit part.
The following is a non-profit fan-based parody.
The following is a fan-based parody. Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball GT are all owned by Funimation, Toei Animation, and Akira Toriyama. Please support the official release.
Because it kind of became dishonesty, mostly in that we were making gaming content on the side, we were making other videos on the channel that we were monetizing, and we were doing all these streams and making brand new content. And our fame largely came from Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Not going to try and pretend like that's not true. Oh, and we were making the shirts as well. We were making merchandise, right? And so at what point, just because we don't monetize the videos, it's a non-profit? No, that's not how that works. We were making the shirts, we were making other videos, we were making other channels, and and a Patreon.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it stopped being non-profit. But we were also trying to make sure it was for the other stuff, you know?
Like, you were never directly taking ads or sponsors on DBZA.
We took sponsors on at least one via Crunchyroll, which is really funny now.
We here at Team 4-Star have always promoted supporting the official release. And thanks to our friends over at Crunchyroll, supporting the official release has never been easier. Stream episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Drifters, and yes, Dragon Ball Super just hours after they air over in the land of the rising sun.
I know, it's super funny now. Super duper funny now.
Yeah, so Crunchyroll actually sponsored one of the episodes of DBZA.
That's right.
Oh, God. Does Crunchyroll have Toei on there? Don't they have?
Oh, this was way before Funimation became, like, they had Toei stuff on there. They did. Don't ask me how that all shook out. I don't know. All I know is they came to us, asked for a sponsorship deal. We did it. I'll say this. At the time, Funimation and us had a really good relationship because they recognized that we were pushing their stuff. In fact, Hellsing Ultimate Abridged. I will say it, we were the biggest commercial Hellsing Ultimate could have ever had. Because at the time, we were making Hellsing Ultimate Abridged, and it was getting a lot of views. And people were like, this show is awesome. What is it? And it's like, Hellsing Ultimate, go watch it. And I've had a lot of people say, I watched the actual show. I never would have if I hadn't seen your show. And I was so happy about that because it's fun. It's a fun show. I remember at a convention once, we were there alongside Funimation, and they had a bunch of Hellsing Ultimate stuff at their booth. They gave it to us and said, give this away at your panel, please.
Wow. So do you think that corporations will ever fully understand or embrace this? Because it seems to me like it's never going to happen.
Well, the big problem that you ultimately run into there is that these are copyrighted. This is copyrighted content.
Yeah.
Disney is very bad about this. In fact, I don't want to defend Disney when I say this, but there is this old commentary about how a nursery. There was a nursery in somewhere in the United States that had Donald Duck on its wall. They weren't marketing it like they owned Donald Duck, right? They were like, oh, it's Donald Duck, we have him on the wall. Well, somebody from Disney found out about that, came in and served them a C&D, saying, hey, you'll have to take that down. Like, you can't have our characters up on the wall. That became a news story. And the reason that happened, very specifically, was that these companies need to regularly engage defending the copyright of these characters, because if they don't do it for long enough, if they refrain too long, then essentially it just becomes evidence that they don't care about defending the copyright, that they are tacitly allowing these people to use this sort of content.
You have to make an example of them.
You do. You have to. It's almost as dark as it sounds, maybe as dark as it sounds, but you do have to basically say, hey, we told these people in this nursery, no, you can't use our characters. That's a way that in court that they can say, we care about this copyright and we're going to continue to protect it. Because again, going too long is considered tacit endorsement. And so when it comes to things like Abridged series, when it comes to fan dubs, when it comes to even AMVs usually don't get in as much trouble, except for the music, actually. It's the music side for the AMVs. And luckily, weirdly enough, YouTube has made it easier. The fact that YouTube has basically said, oh yeah, essentially you can just use whatever music you want, you just can't monetize it. And most AMV people, they're not out here to make the money. They're out here to like, I made this AMV, everyone watch it. And yeah, it gets promoted because usually ads are running on that video, which means YouTube pushes it because that ad revenue is now going back to the people who own the song, the record label. So in a way, that's actually worked out for them. But when it comes to like things like Abridged series and fan dubs, the problem there is that there's just too much of the footage being used. It's too much of the footage kind of like not cut up, or even worse, it's being seen as misrepresenting the brand, in which case that is like one of the biggest problems a lot of these companies find. They do not want their brand being misrepresented, especially Disney. Disney will make a bigger example out of you than anyone else if you use their characters in ways that's not appropriate to them, unless you are obviously making it a parody, which is why Mickey Mouse is kicking the crap out of a bunch of teenagers in South Park.
Well, maybe we'll just refuse to go on stage. Woof! You don't fucking talk to me like that! You little piece of shit! Get the up! Get the fuck up!
Then ironically to be like, okay, you're worried about some character getting misrepresented, and then all of a sudden you take one of the catchphrases from an incredibly inappropriate fan dub and then incorporate it as fan service in the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah, so that one is so fascinating to me because there are so many facets to it. There's so many things to consider. It feels so complicated when you look at it, and yet so simple.
Yeah, the bottom line is, because I had no idea that their channel got deleted.
I didn't either. That's insane to me.
Did you remember? Because I was a fan of the dub when I saw it. I think you remember it. This was a classic internet bit. And I remember seeing some of their other dubs, and I remember seeing that. And, shocker, it feels weird that I shouldn't have had to, like, look up what the hell happened to them 18 years later to be like, oh, you guys lost everything. And you would be able to give me an honest opinion, because it's a difficult question that you are in a qualified position to give the full spectrum of advice on. If their channel hadn't gotten deleted, if their work hadn't gotten taken down, could there have been a bigger future and career opportunities for My Way?
I can't say for certain. Anybody getting famous online, it's really a flip of the coin. If I could tell you whether or not they could have or would have gotten famous, I'd probably be richer than I am right now. Much richer. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in North Dallas, so I could not tell you for certain. But it is always sort of this heartbreaking, frustrating turn of events when somebody who is making this sort of content essentially gets kneecapped, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and it's made so much more insulting, as you pointed out, by the fact that their damn line was used in the movie.
Yes.
Randy and Xavier, how involved were you in the campaign to get the line in the X-Men 3 movie?
None at all.
None at all?
And knowingly used for promotion. Like, oh, you get to see the Juggernaut say the line. This was known buzz for this flick.
If their channel had been left alone, or God help me, promoted, or been like, yeah, these guys are funny, it's fine, it's whatever. But for them to use it and then...
But the more traction that X3 and the line made, the more attention got to us.
Oh no!
It's insane to me. It's so insane to me. Because I remember when I was young, like when I was starting out in this, and I was like, oh man, if the Dragon Ball guys ever like made a reference in one of the games or the Kai dub or the Super dub, if they ever made just the slightest reference to us, I would be so happy. And when I saw that line was in the movie, I actually cringed because it's a really inappropriate joke and it kind of sucks. But I was also like, oh wow, those guys must be psyched, right? Those guys must be so happy.
At its heart, it's really exploitative. Like, it's the, you know, what people say about fan dubs and like, oh, I'm like, you guys cost them. You know, what I won't say is, because, you know, who knows what the word career is? Who knows what the word career is? There's no guarantees, even though I personally feel like looking at their dubs and looking at the type of comedy that they were creating at that particular moment, at that particular time, I think there was absolutely a demand for it.
Oh, yeah.
And to have that, you know, effectively be erased and rewritten as, oh, you guys came up with the line that got in the movie, which is an insult to the dub because the dub was so much funnier. It was this sort of like sublimely funny moment that got taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But I wish people could recognize that, no, that was wrong.
I think a lot of people are going to see that. And again, I would have earlier in my days, I would have seen that, and the first thing I would have thought was, "Oh my God, they quoted us in the movie." Like, that would have been my first response. But yeah, it's actually completely valid to point out they did not treat them with any sort of respect. They just took the thing that they made that got big, that was popular, and then appropriated it.
Yes.
With no credit. With no pay, like, they didn't pay them for that.
They didn't. And here is one argument that I would like to make with you. Fan dubs and AMVs, you know, have no inherent value. Like, it's hard to say what is the worth of a fan dub, what is the worth of an AMV. It feels like the first time a fan dub, in theory, had concrete monetary value is the amount that Fox Studios is willing to spend on those reshoots to get that line in that film.
Yeah, that is sort of that's an interesting point. They did spend money. We are sort of assuming that they did do reshoots.
Oh, I have all the details.
One iconic line.
Yeah, and that was afterwards. That one in the, you know, and then Brett Ratner phoned me and he said, "Oh, I want you to do this line." He'd seen it online, I think it was online, and so he said, "I want you to do it." So we had to go to Elstree for the day, and we did that one line at Elstree. But yeah, I was very disappointed with that.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Oh my God. The fact that it was a reshoot is like they knew for a fact that this line was so popular that they were going to spend money to make sure they got it into the film. Extra money.
And a not negligible amount. And I think that that's where it comes to the weird double standard of this. One side, you can look, everyone says memes. I think even like the line "Hasta la vista, baby," but it was like a Bob Hope line that was then used in Terminator.
You got a chance to prove once and for all who's Top Gun hereabouts. What do you say?
How about "Hasta la vista, baby"?
Hasta la vista, baby.
But when you say they took a line from a fan dub
The Juggernaut!
and used that in that movie, that opens up the much more ethical question that should have been had about this, which again, we all agree, at the bare minimum, they should have received credit in the film.
Yes, I wholeheartedly.
The second bare minimum, they should have received the line in the film and some swag.
I definitely think they needed to be properly recognized in the credits. That is a failure on their part, if I had to be completely honest with you. Like the first failure.
The first of many in this.
Yes, the first of many. The second, yeah, swag would be cool. Swag would be like, hey, by the way, we're sending you a bunch of stuff, and you can talk about it. Please talk about it. We'd love for you to like say like, hey, we got a bunch of stuff from Fox, and yeah, that could have happened, and that would have been good promotion for both sides, because and here's the I think morally. Okay, the legally distinct thing is, if you want to talk about legality, not morality, legality.
Yes.
They kind of were already taking stuff without their permission to make the fan dub in the first place. And so for them to turn around and use something that got popular from a fan dub of the license that they own, you can argue they had the right. Like, you can argue that.
Yeah.
But I'm only talking about from a very, very, very simple mindset. And I think that's a lot of the mindset that people operate on. But Fox is a multi-million-dollar company now owned by Disney, obviously. But they had, it's not the same. It's not the same. When we take from the big guys and make funny little videos out of it, it is not the same for when they come in and they take something of ours. Because when we're making it, It's going to be seen by 80,000 to maybe 500,000 people. Best shot, best hope. When they do it, it's seen by millions of people all over the world. Part of a movie that made them millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know how much X3 made because it was bad, but okay. So it still made the money. So it's not the same.
There really should be a safe harbor for fan work in terms of the rights and in terms of authorship, because shocker, people don't know. Modern day audience, I actually called a comic book shop. They didn't know that line was from an internet video. People, by and large, the majority of people now think of that as a line from X3, which every nihilist on the play will say, yeah, tough, whatever. But any creator would say, yeah, but that sucks.
Yeah.
I wanted to run a thought experiment by you, a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, sure.
So let's go back to 2009. All right, let's go back to 2009 and taking a liberty with timelines here a little bit. So, and this would have been while you guys were finishing up season 1. All right, so we've killed Nappa. You guys are starting to blow up, and I'm going to say, take a line from one of your later fan dubs, which is, sometimes you got to eat that horse.
Hey, Jeets. I heard you lost your fight pretty bad. But you know what they say, Vegeta. When you fall off that horse, you get right back up, and you eat that horse. Come eat that horse with me, Vegeta.
What the hell are you on about?
A classic Team 4-Star line. And let's say, hypothetically speaking, that line was said in season 1 instead of season 3. Dragon Ball Evolution is currently in development. And you guys find word that at some point, Justin Chatwin in this movie is going to say, as Goku, sometimes you got to eat that horse, Vegeta. Or, Vegeta wasn't even in it, but he's going to say...
I can even see the scene where, he's talking with Bulma, and he's like, I know it's going to be hard, but, you get knocked down and off your horse, and you get up, and then you eat that horse.
Yes, what? You can see this scene happening.
Yeah, I can see it in my mind. And as somebody who literally just rewatched Dragon Ball Evolution last week for a video that we're working on,
oh boy,
I hate it. And yeah, I could see that. That hurts.
And then so that line at Justin Chatwin looks on the answer, and then you guys lose your channel.
Which, if going by the timeline, that is how that probably would have happened. And yeah, that would have been. I would have been so damn angry. I would have, again, if it had shown up in the movie at the time, me being younger, dumber, and full of gum, I probably would have just been like, oh my God, I was in the movie. That's so cool. Like I said, because I was like, yeah, we something we wrote ended up in another Fox film, huh? And then if our channel had gotten taken down after, my brain would have split in half. We don't necessarily need that thought experiment. I could already tell you that for my way, for the Juggernaut bitch, that shit sucks.
And this is me kind of almost asking you personally. What do you think can reasonably be done about this? When I was working on this project, when I tell people, hey, I was working on a documentary about the Juggernaut bitch guys, everyone lights up. Everyone remembers that dub. Everyone remembers their work. And if you go on their website, there's still a solid catalog of My Way material that you can check out. And I think that we should, I feel like we're fossils in this sort of sense, but in this increasingly gamified, engineered internet landscape, that we really do need to remember, hey, this is an aspect of digital culture, and it meant something to us, and it is honestly hard to preserve work like this because it does get attacked. What did you think of the types of dubs that they were making at the time that they were making them?
Obviously, certain tastes have changed, certain values have changed. You know what they say, comedy is the quickest to age and the most likely to age poorly, but they're still charming as hell.
Man, she hiding the pussy. Where you hiding the pussy, Charles? Behind in here. What the f is that blue bitch she hiding here? You better get at these crab nuts. Well, lobster hole. It's formation time. Attacking the killer gazebo. My activator's ripping. Somewhere.
Please don't fuck. Take it again.
Got the time, bitch.
Yes, I love it. The birthday party's a nice cake, but why is it gotta be yellow?
Bitch, f your party. Goddamn Kobe. I think he wants his Kobe.
Man, you know what would have been good and fucking Saved by the Bell? Philip Seymour Hoffman. What in the fuck was that?
with the My Way stuff. It's like Grand Theft Auto humor.
Yeah.
Like turn on the radio stations in those games, you're gonna listen to like one or two funny lines that happen and all.
Oh no, 100%. I'm a huge fan of irreverent comedy. I love comedy that is bawdy and over the top. Because, truth be told, a lot of people get a little bit squeamish about certain types of comedy and subversive material and stuff that might be considered a little offensive, honestly. But I think there's a lot of things, a lot of different ways that you can approach that type of comedy. One of the things you have to do is sort of not be too mean-spirited about it, right?
Mean-spirited is the perfect word, because there's nothing mean-spirited about any of their dubs.
Yeah, even though they say some things that if said in a mean spirit would be terribly offensive, but the fact that you can feel like this energy, this irreverence, this I'm just having fun with this bullshit, and it's gonna be a little offensive, but you're probably gonna laugh because you know it's a farce.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons a lot of that old stuff worked, because they were farcical and they were just going crazy. And like I love that sort of thing. There's a part of me that feels like we can't have that anymore.
No.
It does feel like we can't have these moments where we're just like having fun and being a little bit just irreverent with everything, because now we're also deeply connected to it. We're also close to it. It's so difficult for us to be able to be comfortable with that nowadays. So I look at a lot of that older material, and there is this part of me that feels like, yeah, I do feel like I'm back in a different sort of time. Also, I'm not going to say that it was a better time. I'm not saying that it's not good that we're reconsidering how we want to talk about certain subjects. But there is value to be found in people just kind of having fun, right? And it's nice to be able to kind of look at that time capsule at a time where these dudes are just having fun.
There was some, especially like when it came to YouTube back then, this is different than like the crazy awful crap that Shane Dawson was doing. Like there was some stuff that was genuinely abhorrent.
Yeah. Oh, genuinely
abhorrent. And I think that to recognize their style of transgressive comedy, I think that they should, just be remembered for making exceptional work at that time.
There were still people who were having fun, who were trying to be creative, who were going off the cuff. Improvisational comedy fan dubs, doing them is tricky. But the best ones stick in your mind sort of forever, right?
Do you think that Juggernaut had any influence on Team 4-Star?
Impossible to deny that it did. Impossible to deny. Like, again, back then, the pool was smaller.
Yeah.
Like, and that's also one of the reasons that a lot of people got big back in the day. That pool was smaller. You were the ones doing it. You were probably one of the only ones doing it, right? Like, there are a bunch of bridge series out there right now, and a bunch of them are still getting a lot of views. But we got in early, and that was one of the keys to our success. Like, I'm not going to go out here and say we're funnier than all of these other people. We're patently not. I'm not going to go say we made our stuff better than all of these other people. We patently didn't. But what we did do is we got in sort of early during a time where this stuff was really popping off. And since it was such a smaller pool, we saw that, and we're like, oh yeah, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. And that kind of influenced how we wrote. Just come up with a phrase that everyone wants to say, right? Come up with something witty, something punchy.
Vegeta, punch! Over there yet? No. Over there yet? No. Over there yet? No. Over there yet? No.
There is kind of a Juggernaut bitch quality to Nappa. Because I think, and this is a fair comparison to kind of make between the two. Was the Juggernaut a standout character in the X-Men universe in any particular way before that meme came out? And the answer is kind of no.
Yeah, kind of no.
He was a weird side character, and all of a sudden these guys come in, they change the voice, and all of a sudden everybody loves him, and he's this, like, weird, silly character with the catchphrase, and then,
Vegeta! Look! A Pokemon! What the fuck? Captain Planet? I think I see Captain Planet.
It's very true to DragonBall. The series picks up once Vegeta shows up. Gives all due respect to Raditz. He's Raditz.
With all due respect to Raditz.
Freaking, all of a sudden you guys come in and this big bulky guy, which by the way, big dudes are just funny in general.
Why do you think the Tick was so famous, did so well, right?
I will also say that as a bald, tall guy, I identified the most with Nappa. I can do a fairly decent Nappa impression. Would you be willing to rate me on?
What, is this every anime convention I've ever been to? Please go right ahead.
Hey, Vegeta, look, A Pokemon.
Honestly, I feel like this entire interview would have been completely unfinished without that. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, that comedy definitely influenced us, I have to say. Not just our type of comedy, but also to make material on the internet. At that time, I was in love with the idea of fan parodies, of fan dubs. My first fan dub I ever made was when I was maybe, I'm going to say 11 or 12. I took a camcorder, pointed it at my TV screen, muted the second Dragon Ball Z movie, World's Strongest, played it, and then as the movie was playing, I talked next to the camcorder.
You've wanted to do this your whole life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. The moment I found out about voice acting when I was a kid, I needed to do that. I was so desperate to do it. I spent stupid amounts of money on finally getting an actual video card and then making a fan dub of that Trunks scene where he kills Frieza. I've wanted to do it forever.
I did a little research that Takahata says they kind of had to goad you into being Trunks, but it sounds like you were always just kind of destined to be Trunks from the beginning.
I didn't want to be Trunks because he was my favorite character, and I was like, I can't be my favorite character. If I failed, then I failed my favorite character.
Oh, gosh.
That made me work extra harder, I won't lie. I tried so hard with Trunks.
I think this might shock you. This might be, I think you did a good job being Trunks.
I really appreciate it.
You know, DBZA has been concluded. I think the ending on the Cell Saga was the right note to end on. I do think that the Boo Bits was an appropriate way to share the material that would have been done after.
I'm glad you feel that way.
I think that was a complete right move to make. And, you know, I think the weird thing being like, reason why I'm always so hesitant to being like, My Way could have been the biggest things ever is always just like, yeah, but, you know, you guys were the biggest thing and you still could not deal with copyright stuff.
Dragon Ball Z Abridged is over.
And as internet content as a whole becomes more kind of zeitgeist based, there is a big part of me that's just worried that all of this is going to be completely forgotten.
It's difficult because, you know, like we want to make the things that we want to make. And we've been trying ways to make money in the meantime. We've got other things that we've been working on. We've got some new projects, but it has been sort of difficult because chasing that zeitgeist is exhausting. It's exhausting, and it kind of feels like it just sort of removes all the joy out of your life. Like Dragon Ball Z Abridged was a project that was made because I loved it. It also got me a bunch of, you know, popularity too. It helped make me money. I'm not going to deny that. It's very possible that if that hadn't happened, then season 3 might not have happened. But I wouldn't have made season 3 if I didn't love to make it, because I didn't make season 4 because I didn't want to make it.
Yeah.
So I loved Dragon Ball Z Abridged. I loved working on it. I loved making it. And that is one thing I think people just need to remember, is that if you're going to make something like this as a hobby, love it. You got to love it. Because if you don't, like if you try to make it your job and you're not passionate about it, it just drains on you, and it just kind of like, it kills your momentum. I've heard so many people be like, yeah, I tried to make this and I tried to get big off of it and it just got so exhausting. And I'm like, well, if you have passion for it but no audience, then it kills your motivation, because at that point it's like, well, I am making something that I love but nobody's watching it. But if you're making something that you don't love for an audience who likes it, then you're just going to find yourself careening into burnout before you even know it happened. It just becomes another job. It's tough. I tried to make a bunch of like X minutes videos, and I'm really proud of those. I'm really happy with how a lot of those came out. But even I was like, okay, I think I've made kind of like my jokes with those. I kind of want to try new things, and it's tough.
It's very scary because that's all of a sudden you're going to have to try something new, and you don't know if something new is going to be something that lands.
Yeah. And that's kind of the terrifying thing about being an online media creator. I don't like content creator. I think content creator is a really reductive term.
Hearing you say that sounds like a breath of freaking fresh air. Oh my God.
Okay, here's the most pretentious thing that I've said all interview, which is going to be impressive considering everything I said about our writing for season 3. I think that the term content creator smooths out all the nuance of the things that online creators make. We don't make content, okay? Some people do make content. Okay, some people are literally out there just like, oh yeah, here's another video for people to kind of eat up to make money. And you know what? I'm not going to shit talk them. I'm not going to be over here saying that what they're doing is wrong. I'm not even going to say the audience enjoying that stuff is wrong. But I think trying to say that people who are trying to make art, people who are trying to make things that are expressive of not only themselves, but the things that they love, calling it content, again, it smooths out all the nuance, and I don't want to do that.
It just feels so depersonalized, which I think internet stuff is becoming more depersonalized.
Funny enough, I actually, the last 2 conventions I did, I actually had a couple panels called Discontent Creator. And it was me literally talking about the YouTube space and how it kind of crushes creative content. So a lot of this conversation that we've had kind of just stems from the stuff that I talked about there. But yeah, we were influenced by so many people back in the day. I think it's worth noting that none of this happens in a vacuum, right? You have My Way, you have all those old fan dubs that got circulated at anime conventions. You have Red vs. Blue. You have all this fan-made content. And you even have comics. You know, you have VG Cats. You have 8-Bit Theater. You have Little Saiyans, which was this comic literally about what if we had all of the Dragon Ball characters basically in a kindergarten.
Like a Muppet Babies kind of thing, but...
Kind of. Like, they were all going to, like, I think it was a school, actually. I think they were all, like, maybe elementary schoolers, and that was the joke, and that stuck with me for a long time. By the way, anybody in the comments who remembers Little Saiyans, shout it out, because I will be thrilled if people remember. Like, we were all sort of inspired by one another during that time. I still think that's kind of great. I love the fact that whether or not we talked to each other and whether or not we knew each other, these fandoms were sort of working in tandem to create a new culture out of the pop culture we enjoyed. And that is remix culture. And that's why I celebrate it. That's why I love it. That's why I defend it.
And that's why it's been amazing to talk to you firsthand about all of this stuff.
But what if you had an up-and-coming artist? I don't know. What if you had a couple of guys who like to do fan dubs on their channel? And then suddenly some big company comes in and then uses a joke that they made and then never credits them. But, you know, it's going to be a tribute to you, right? It's a tribute, right? Unfortunately, that never happened to us, but it'd be really terrible if it happened to someone else.
Forgot to dodge! Just go Vegeta rules all!
Are you Yoshi? Vegeta! Go Snapper! Yeah, so let's sing it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. It's over 9,000! What, 9,000? There's 9,000!
If I was good at YouTube, this video would have been called There Will Never Be Another Group Like Team 4-Star. It also would have been 40 minutes shorter and have come out 4 years ago. Despite the most humble and dorky origins possible, a group of friends who like to pretend to voice the characters of Dragon Ball Z, they may be one of the most controversial projects in the history of comedy. Not for their subject matter, but because what they did does infringe copyright. Even though Sean Schemmel has been uptight about decrying them, Chris Sabat, the voice of Vegeta, is an unabashed fan and, even on occasion, collaborator.
Officially like Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Officially.
Thank you, Team 4-Star.
Thank you, Team
4-Star.
Thank you, Team
4-Star.
Thank you, Team Brown Star.
And despite carrying the torch for Dragon Ball Z and a cameo role in the game Xenoverse 2, Team 4-Star are unofficial pariahs in their very fandom. Although that has never once stopped them for asking their viewers to support the official release.
Please support the
official release. TFS has the kind of global cult fan base that has followed them for over a decade, and their projects and exploits are well documented in their extensive commentaries, Q&As, and interviews. Honestly, one of the fears I had going into this is that a lot of this is stuff that has already been covered. Except many of their fans would have noticed something weird Kaiser mentioned.
Oh man, if the Dragon Ball guys ever made a reference in one of the games or the Kai dub.
Team 4-Star were referenced in the Kai dub. Emphasis on the were, and it is one of the most ironic cameos of all time.
Get that Dragon Ball! Get that Dragon Ball!
Dragon Ball has had a fascinating history in terms of dubbing since it was one of the first massive serialized anime to come over to the US. It went through several different dubs of varying quality and censorship issues.
What's your name, anyway?
I've been called many things. My favorite is Whiskers the Wonder Cat.
Many of its quirks are running jokes in the fanbase, such as censoring the word hell into HFIL, the home for infinite losers. And of course, changing death into sending into another dimension.
Transporting Yamcha into another dimension.
I'm talking to you with my mind from another dimension.
Latched onto Nappa in an attempt to escort him personally to another dimension.
Now, although I grew up with DBZ, I was more of a casual fan in what can be an incredibly hardcore fandom. Since although it was awesome, like many, I was kind of turned off by the massive amount of filler that was present in the show. Something that is admittedly a weakness with DBZ. So by abridging it, Team 4-Star weren't just making it funny, they were humorously solving one of the show's core narrative flaws. A show that also could have used a little more intentional humor in the writing. And TFS's DBZA, a screwball re-envisioning of the series with callbacks, muffin buttons, and an indelible interpretation of the mid-class Saiyan warrior Nappa.
You okay, Vegeta?
Yes, just an aneurysm out of sheer stupidity.
Wow! I didn't think you were that stupid, Vegeta.
Was, dare I say, pretty dang funny. The pacing problem was one Toei and Funimation were also set out to fix with the release of DBZ Kai, a remastered version of DBZ that cut out the filler and streamlined the dialogue, reducing its episode count from 291 episodes to a slim 167. In fact, in episode 106 of the Kai dub, not only were Team 4-Star going to be featured officially in DBZ, it's one of the most brilliant cameos ever.
Retelling of Mr. Satan's heroic deeds during the Cell Games. Now sit back and enjoy.
That's their cell?
As a bunch of guys pretending to be the characters from Dragon Ball Z, reenacting the Cell Games.
Bring it on, you ninny! How rude! Hi-ya! Hi-ya! Oh, wait, hold on. Hi-ya!
Losers! You thought you were hot, when in fact, you were not!
You are most unkind!
Tremble in fear, for it is I, the great Mr. Satan!
Mondo cool!
His coolness is over 9,000!
It even ties into their elaborate alternate mythology, where their version of Nappa was resurrected by Shenlong and went off to have a career in Hollywood.
I'm a producer now. I'm in charge of this new project. We just signed on this great new actor too. Name's Mark Satan.
Not only is it hilarious in context, there's even a 4-minute video breaking down how it successfully references every major DBZ meme.
How did you get so strong?
With push-ups and sit-ups and plenty of juice.
How did you acquire this new strength?
Do a lot of push-ups and sit-ups. And I drink plenty of juice.
Mondo cool!
The liquid in the capsule is synthetic Saiyan DNA. It'll get Kakarot's strength back in no time.
Whoa, Mondo cool.
That's right, boys. Mondo cool.
Now, despite being an incredibly charming piece of fan service,
you have shown me the error of my ways.
You won't actually see it in the Kai dub, because it was removed from the official broadcast. In fact, if you watch it on Hulu, it's the only moment in the Kai dub that was just one from the original.
Haha! It is I, Cell, who will instead beat you. It is I, Cell, who will instead beat you.
Let's fight now.
Take that! Ha! You gang of strangers, we're not hard, but easy.
Rats, we have lost.
Your useless tricks are stupid and useless.
Mr. Satan is great.
I wish I were him.
Because while the North American Funimation staff thought Team 4-Star was hilarious, Toei did not and demanded the whole thing be removed from the broadcast of Toonami, or dare I say, sent to another dimension.
I shall now send you to the next dimension!
And the only reason that this clip survived is that an astute TFS fan noticed that the cameo was still intact on the Xfinity On Demand version and uploaded it from there. The poll was so last minute, they didn't even have time to change the closed captioning. So if you put on the subtitles on Hulu, it is in fact the dialogue from the TFS cameo. So, Ghost Nappa does live on as a Ghost Nappa in the machine.
I am hilarious and you will quote everything I say.
So Japan infamously has much more strict copyright laws than the US, and Toei's rigid control over their IP has gotten them in hot water both on YouTube and with all of Latin America. And although fair use doesn't apply the same way there, Japan does have a massive culture that freely infringes on copyright, and that's doujinshi culture, where whole conventions are held where people sell fan-made art and comics with characters that they don't have the rights to. Admittedly, most of it is porn, but it is recognized as a breeding ground for new talents. The artist collective Clamp and the harem anime author turned politician Ken Akamatsu got their start making doujin. Even legends like Rumiko Takahashi and Yoshihiro Togashi have indulged in making lowbrow trashy parody comics. However, doujinshi aren't classified as fair use. They're shinkokuzai, meaning they aren't viewed as a prosecutable offense unless the creator complains, which is kind of redundant but admittedly makes sense, since by and large these runs are super limited and they're fan work that doesn't compete with the market of the original and overall boosts the audience for the work. But things like parody dubs are a phenomenon unique to Western fandom, and in some ways they're a reaction to the westernization and poor translation of the source material by die-hard fans.
Here lies Carl Masak, who was executed after a showing of Robotech the movie. Boy, he must have really f***ed up.
Her cards share one very distinct weakness.
What's that?
They've all been censored by 4Kids.
Take Icarus to Corin's Towers, pick up some senzu beans for Goku, and hurry back!
Wait, why am I going?
Because last time I hung out with him, I totally forgot what his name was and just kept calling him Whiskers the Wonder Cat.
There's a reason why the Dragon Ball fan base will always have it in for Fox over the whole evolution thing. But here's the weird part. As much as it sucked, Dragon Ball Evolution and its existence is viewed as an overall net positive for the Dragon Ball fandom. Since it was so bad, its very creation pissed Akira Toriyama off enough to come back to the series for Dragon Ball Battle of the Gods. So we can inadvertently thank Dragon Ball Evolution for giving the world Whis and Beerus. And I know I'm like 15 years late to the party with this, but it is wild to me how in a property that has been officially mangled as much as Dragon Ball, that the tables have turned, and there are people that now think Dragon Ball Z Abridged, the fucking parody dub, has irrevocably harmed the fandom. That its overzealous fans hype it up too much and take it way too seriously as canon, and that DBZA has led to what has become the most reviled take in all of anime. I prefer the parody dub. That it is corny how in every Goku voice actor tier list, someone in the comments will say, I like Masako X. That the memes are stale, the dead horse is beaten and eaten, and that DBZA has damaged Dragon Ball. Which seems like a lot of salt over a amateur fan dub, but admittedly there was hardly anything amateur about the quality that TFS was able to achieve.
Oh God, no, my marijuana patch!
When TFS got their start in 2008 using ripped anime footage, it was a way to achieve a really high level of production value compared to the low quality of camera footage on YouTube at the time. In a way, what they were doing by puppeting anime footage was no different than puppeting video game via machinima, like Rooster Teeth did with Red vs. Blue.
Ow, chickle, ow, wow!
Except while Red vs. Blue was embraced by Bungie, DBZA still used the same plots, characters, and footage that Toei and Shueisha owned. And unlike video games, which have a sandbox type element, things like movies and TV shows are very linear and their footage has been much more protected. Which is what made DBZA and TFS an undeniable anomaly in the history of web media. What started as a passion project between a group of friends became a globally supported phenomenon. And they got really, really freaking good at it.
Well, you know what? Power levels! Super Saiyans! And
They loved making the show. People loved watching it. And over time, they garnered enough fan support to essentially work full-time making a rogue Buccaneer version of Dragon Ball Z. At the time, it seemed like a natural development of the series, but in hindsight, it is one of the craziest projects in the history of unauthorized media. A small business that effectively utilized the dumb Starbucks parody business model from Nathan For You, but with Dragon Ball.
By adding the word dumb, we are legally allowed to use the coveted Starbucks name and logo because we've fulfilled the minimum requirements to be considered a parody under US law.
Except this is a trick, because one is about trademark infringement and one is about copyright infringement. Since Starbucks is a brand and a logo like the McDonald's arches or the Wendy's girl, and Dragon Ball is a story like Pokemon or every goddamn anime. Dumb Starbucks can create consumer confusion as to whether or not you are drinking at a real Starbucks, and at no point did Dragon Ball Z Abridged ever attempt to create consumer confusion as to whether or not you are buying official Dragon Ball Z merchandise. It is unofficial. They are not the real Dragon Ball Z. They are the pretend Dragon Ball Z, a show that is also technically pretend and not real. Because the difference between trademark violation and copyright violation is the difference between being taken to court immediately for fraud and being taken to court for stealing someone's work and ideas. Because one is impersonating a business and one is creative expression. And very true to Dragon Ball Z, whether or not it's legal or ethical depends on an interpretation of the word transformative. I don't think anyone would find anything culturally or morally objectable about Season 1 of DBZA, but as their quality in writing grew, well, their homebrew parody became something studio quality. It is not low effort, and it is very different from the original, but although it's a comedic retelling, it is still a retelling. Things like Hellsing Ultimate Abridged definitely boosted the fandom when it came out in 2010, but what used to be a few episodes parodying the show now became a 2-hour and 40-minute long fan movie that does in some way affect the fact that Hellsing Ultimate is currently available for streaming on Crunchyroll. Dragon Ball Z Abridged spans 60 episodes, spin-offs, and multiple fan movies. Viewers who only watch the Abridged series become a sore spot in the fandom, despite the fact that TFS always urged their viewers to
please support the official release!
Because they weren't trying to be a substitute or undermine the original. They're just making their own goofy, silly parody version. Even its contractors wouldn't deny that it is a tribute made in good faith. But legally speaking, that doesn't provide the project a shred of protection, especially since money got involved. And when money gets involved with derivative work, the difference between a parody and fan fiction is the difference between Hardware Wars, the classic spoof featuring Fluke Starbucker, Ham Salad, and Augie Ben Doggy that has made $1 million on an $8,000 budget, and the Star Trek fan film Prelude to Axanar, which crowdfunded $100,000 for a 21-minute short, and then followed that up by raising over $1 million for a feature-length version, which led to multiple nasty lawsuits incurring over $290,000 in legal fees and a 10-year-long legal struggle between the film and CBS Paramount. Worse yet, it actually led to sanctions. Because of Axanar, Star Trek fan film projects can no longer exceed 15 minutes in length and have a cap at 2 episodes. And yes, these official restrictions are downright draconian, but Alec Peters, the director of Axanar, kinda brought it on himself by calling Axanar an independent Star Trek film and not a fan film. So Axanar is the production that has been viewed by the Trekkies as having poisoned the well, despite the fact that Prelude is some quality Trek and has a fantastic performance by the late Tony Todd.
Without undoing the dream of the Federation.
So when Kaiser was talking about the fear of setting a negative precedent, it's not a laughing matter. And the reason all of this fan work and copyright and fair use stuff is probably always going to be unregulated is because if the corporations step in, the restrictions will be severe. And if the fans keep doing it blind, then we'll have work that unfairly gets struck and claimed by a bunch of bots who can't tell the difference. So unless there's radical organizing and a complete overhaul of the antiquated DMCA, it'll always be a tug of war that's different in every damn country. I think copyright crime in a clear legal sense involves direct counterfeiting of images, plagiarism, or pirated streaming, and the real damaging perpetrators of it are bad faith reaction channels and generative AI. TFS aren't criminals, they're basically a tribute band like Max Sabbath. No one thinks it's immoral for Max Sabbath to sell matchup merch. They just fell into a weird niche where instead of covering songs, they covered anime. The problem is that footage is copyrighted. And yeah, if they were taken to court, the amount of footage used and the nature of it would have weighed against them in the fair use doctrine. But fair use is just a doctrine, and they never went to court, because it would be bad optics for Toei if they actually tried to take it down, and TFS always cooperated with them.
All we have is an unspoken understanding. We have worked for Funimation, but we don't have an quote-unquote agreement. I cannot stand here and say, oh yeah, we definitely have in writing, oh yeah, it's as long as we don't do this, and as long as that doesn't happen, and this and that. We're always playing to our best intentions.
The project was always precarious, but it was never nefarious. And in a weird way, Toei are the ones that actually make ad money directly off the show. Anytime they copyright claim one of the episodes of DBZA, TFS doesn't fight it. So it's almost like the opposite of the arrangement Team StarKid have with Warner Brothers over selling merch and sheet music for their signature parody of Harry Potter musical, because they do want to be respectful. They do want to support the official release, all while making their uncanny fanboy comedy tribute dub that is genuinely more respectful of the source material than some of the official ones. And all the controversy is always over the series. No one's ever had a problem with Team 4-Star as people. They were always regarded as pretty normal, swell guys. It's not like there's a ton of drama videos on them like the rest of the Channel Awesome community, which is weird because they were doing the most dangerous shit out of all of them. They went into uncharted waters but strived to stay as moral and ethical as public radio. It's not dumb Starbucks, which is actually a thing in Russia for the record. And while copyright with IP and intangible assets and derivative work gets so much grayer with incidents like the unofficial Bridgerton musical and the Detroit Bridgerton Ball, honestly, the closest moral equivalent I can make with Dragon Ball Z Abridged is that it was done in the spirit of a doujin. Team 4-Star are a doujin circle. They effectively created the video equivalent of a Niji Sosaku parody manga. Hell, there's now even an actual illustrated Niji Sosaku manga version of DBZA, and it's great. And while Dragon Ball Doujinshi have been used to scout illustrators for official Dragon Ball projects, the Abridged movement has gone on to hone the craft of voice actors. And yes, professional-grade voice actors have now come out of that scene. True, the heyday passed years ago, but people still do Abridged series now because they think it's fun, it's training, it's a hobby, it's harmless. And while Niji Sosaku and Doujinshi are sold very discreetly in very controlled environments, TFS helped spawn and inspire a whole goofy wave of creativity that could have only happened if this media was allowed to be shared freely online. I know, like Rick and Morty fans are poorly behaved goobers at the playground, DBZA fans need to read the room and recognize when they are crashing the party and ruining people's fun by intruding all the time. But the reason why I hate the take DBZA damaged the fan base is because it implies that Team 4-Star did something wrong in creating it. That the point of a parody dub is to be dumb, and it invited trouble by daring to do otherwise.
It's a live home video that I personally took of the Sasquatch stealing my son's pogo stick.
And sure, by the end it was getting a little fanficky and the writing was becoming a little too 30 rock the dragon, but when your project uses borrowed footage, you know you're on borrowed time. Maybe there is something kind of intrinsically Goku about that. To create a fan dub that always dared to surpass itself, even to a degree that some would say is dangerous. To challenge what it means to be a parody, a fan work, fair use. I don't think Team 4-Star were blasphemous or playing God when they tried to make their own DBZ. They honored the spirit of DBZ. Where they absolutely were playing God was with the word abridged, because that was the reduced Shakespeare Company's thing, and abridged is supposed to mean in a nutshell. The abridged part is the joke, but because you had the #1 headband, oh, what does abridged mean? I guess whatever you want it to. Except you totally played yourself, because when you tried to do JoJo's Bizarre Adventure abridged, you couldn't call it that because you changed the meaning to the other thing, so you had to call it in X minutes, even though in X minutes is Giggix' whole shtick. But don't act like you're so clever, Garnt, you didn't reinvent the wheel, you just meditated and clickbaited the oldest trick in the Weeb book. There is undeniable talent behind Team 4-Star, and like any talented group, there is drama, history, conflicts, and someone one day will release a retrospective that is much more thorough than this one. But I guess what I found fascinating in terms of craft as seemingly innocuous as fan dubbing, TFS reached the pinnacle. Their abridged version of the Broly movie is the most viewed fan dub on YouTube, and it is blocked in most countries. It's a craft the legality of which never was and likely never will be determined in a court of law. And like My Way, they followed their dreams of voicing their own cartoon shows with their friends to the limit. And after a decade of top-notch work, copyright struggles, and creative burnout, that limit was the Cell Saga, and arguably the peak of DBZ. For Team 4-Star, their time at the Cell Games was the culmination of a 10-year journey of struggles, camaraderie, laughter, and tears. But, I suppose for Toei, TFS at the Cell Games was their duck on the wall.
I am beaten.
Justice always wins.
Although, they did manage to leave in that part where Lonnie as Krillin urges the viewers to support the official release.
Make sure to purchase all Mr. Satan merchandise at your local vendor.
Kaiser is a really fascinating creator to me. In part because the craft he's an undisputed master of, doctoring and re-editing anime footage, is a lot like the craft of making chainmail armor. Yes, it's cool and is seen as decorational now, but it was once something cutting edge, and at the time of making DBZA, he was, bar none, the best in the world at it. I think it's more than a little coincidence that his inaugural Abridged series happened to be Lupin III, a character whose creator Monkey Punch violated copyright in creating when he stole the name from Arsène Lupin's author Maurice Leblanc in 1967. Hell, it's kind of hard for me not to see a little bit of TFS in the old Lupin gang. And Kaiser is the furry with a rough upbringing whose skills sparked an arms race to see who could be the best at faking anime. It was more than a hobby, and his passion and work went on to entertain millions, and is someone whose life was changed by something as seemingly trivial as internet content and parody fandubs. And honestly, what I really wanted to do was talk to the guy about some 20 and in some case 40-year-old fandubs, because I was also raised on fan-made media, and it was a really big hoot, and there's a video of that coming out soon. Anime fandom has changed drastically in the last decade. Now with streaming, simulcasting, and social media, the culture has become far more accessible and has evolved into something much larger, mainstream, and commercial than the fringe otaku could have ever imagined. And while fandubbing will continue to grow and go on, it is a new generation now. I think the most honest thing we touched on in all of this is we are kind of like fossils now. I still think dinosaurs are cool, and their history is worth preserving. That maybe I have a soft spot for that time before influencers, when the internet was ruled by the abridgers and the cyber goons.
No, some dude was in there talking crazy, like he was gangster. Oh, you a cyber goon in this motherfucker?
You see, it was funny.
Attack my IP address? Like,
in recent years, the Team 4-star crew has entered a new chapter in their post-DBZA arc. Lonnie got ripped like a beast and moved to LA, and I don't think there's any controversy in saying, his Craven did a better net box office than the official one. Takahata is making it work as a VTuber, and sometimes for a laugh, he'll put on a hat and bust out the old Alucard voice.
Who am I going to shoot today? I know I'll start with boy number 1 and move along to boy number 5 and let 2 through 4 their pants.
And Kaiser, well, you just know that rascal's always up to something. Kaiser spent over a decade of his life making a beloved parody passion project that was viewed as a toxic asset to the very company it was founded to create. And although series like Hiffle continued the DBZA spirit using video animation as a way to compromise on copyright, it is rough when one of the strongest pieces of creativity you make in your life is, well, unauthorized. I think 2024 was a year that symbolized for many the beginning of a new era of the internet and the closing of another one. Some big personalities took a step back, Akira Toriyama passed on, and a certain cameo-filled movie made over $1 billion this summer. It was a movie that billed itself as a send-off to the Fox era of Marvel movies that I happen to honestly fucking love, and weirdly enough also featured the return of the Juggernaut from X3. Well, it wasn't actually him. They had to bring in a new guy because being in X3 sucked so much they couldn't pay Vinnie Jones enough to come back. Not that he did much this particular outing. Granted, he actually seemed to have a fun time being the Juggernaut, and I suppose really that's the only thing that matters. It's just weird that in this movie that featured all of these cameos and fan service and fourth wall breaking, you feature the one version of the Juggernaut that infamously broke the fourth wall and then not have him do anything. You know, you could have brought back the Jug from Deadpool 2 and have had him say the line. Something that everyone who saw Deadpool 2 kept waiting to happen and never did.
That is such a Juggernaut thing to say.
Like, that would have been fun. That's like getting referenced in a Sonic comic. This sucked. This was like a stranger kissing you on the mouth. And like, yeah, it was a weird, cringy moment in a really expensive movie. But did anyone who was making it or watch it, stop and wonder, hey, how do the guys who came up with that line feel? I guess when I interviewed Nies and Randy, the founders of My Way Entertainment and the creators of that video, I could tell that these guys were hurt. And it pained me to know that some creators that made me and so many others laugh were taken advantage of. That they weren't just some of the first people making anime fandubs on YouTube, but that their work has been repeatedly targeted and taken down. That the reason they lost their channel wasn't because of some vulgar breach of community guidelines, but having Avatar: The Last Airbender AMVs. something which is essentially decriminalized on YouTube now. And the reason a lot of people don't remember who they are is because nobody ever properly credited them. I actually took a look in the Wayback Machine. The original infamous J1 upload had 3,600,000 views before it was wiped. Still more than most career YouTubers will get on a single video, and while that may seem paltry compared to the MrBeast numbers of today, to give a bit of context, in 2006, the My Way dubs were pulling early Smosh numbers. Granted, Smosh also lost one of their biggest videos due to copyright,
But randomly, some dick removed it, claiming copyright.
but if things played out a little bit differently, maybe they would have had the chance to be recognized as early pioneering creators, and not just some guys who made a meme.
But I cannot remember a single thing about The Last Stand besides the Juggernaut meme.
Avalanche, Vanisher, and Juggernaut, bitch!
But like, it was just a bunch of guys fucking around. And it was like dead by the time they put it in this too.
Yeah.
It was just like when your mom starts saying, "Oh shit, what up? It's that boy." You know?
Over the internet, of these guys who just jive talking over it.
More money than you guys will see in your life is spent to get your line in this movie. I guess that's why I'm so fixated on all of this, that almost 19 years ago, on the dawn of this website, two friends shared a video they made, and some guy who directed a really big movie saw it and thought, hey, this is really funny. I'm going to take your line and put this in my movie. And I'm not going to reach out to you. I'm not going to pay you. I'm not even going to thank you, because you're just some guys on the internet. Except Matt McMuscles. Matt McMuscles was literally the only shout out these guys got this year.
Big ups to My Way Entertainment, by the way.
I'm the juggernaut, bitch. I'm gonna hit you with your own pimp.
And with all due respect to Mr. McMuscles, I think we can do right by a couple of certifiable internet legends by setting a new precedent. That when some sleazeball Hollywood director does something super lame, you get a little something cool to make up for it. And even if it takes a real long ass time, we will give credit where credit is due. So on behalf of the collective unauthorized citizens of the internet, we recognize and honor Xavier Nazario and Randy Hayes of My Way Entertainment and award them the following. You get a couple of fans to put on a silly little meme trial and give you a fair hearing. You get one of the best abridgers who does a pretty mean Trunks to stand up and call bullshit. You get one snow-piercing theorist who will edit the whole thing together and join them. And you get one new cameo from a juggernaut, and this one is just for you.
This is the Juggernaut, Jordan Grace, and this is a message for the baddest motherfucking world, Randy Hayes. You're the Juggernaut, bitch.
What are you an ass? I'm a beast, I'm a monkey hood superstar. Diesel with these hands, hit stronger than a muscle car. My words get these birds as moist as reverbs. I splurge and reverse like I'm a juggernaut. Bye, bitch ass.
I do know that you have a hard out, so we'll...
Yeah, I do actually have to leave here. This was great, by the way.
Scott, I'm so happy to be able to talk to you. This has been truly a delight. Before you go,
yes,
I want to get to officiate a potential world record. Because one thing that I noticed is the original Juggernaut Bitch upload was February, predated Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged by 4 months.
Oh.
And My Way Entertainment has recently released their 4th installment in the Juggernaut Bitch series, Juggernaut 4 Life. I do believe that until Martin drops his next episode, Juggernaut Bitch is the longest running fandub parody series in existence.
Amazing. Very amazing.
Can we get a salute to the true kings of dub?
Absolutely.
Fuck yeah. Scott, thank you again so much for taking the time out to talk about all this.
Oh, trust me, we both of our ears would be suffering by the end of any conversation. I love this stuff.